Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today is episode 8 on the channel, and it's a travel day, or in fact, yesterday was the travel day, as you can probably tell by the footage you've already seen. Usually on a travel day, I would stop at the airport and grab a coffee and bring you guys kind of up to speed on where we're going next. And as you can tell, that clearly did not happen. So let me kind of explain what did happen yesterday. First, the taxi that I had ordered and reserved arrived half an hour late to pick me up, which wasn't too much of an issue because I'd buffered about 45 minutes into my itinerary just for something like that happening. But when I got to the airport, as soon as you enter the airport, the first thing that you do is line up and go through a full security check. Your luggage, your carry-on, everything, you know, the usual airport routine, which I thought was kind of cool, actually, that you kind of got that taken care of right away. I then lined up and did my baggage claim and got my boarding pass, and then lined up to do a passport security check, which I wasn't quite sure why we were doing a passport check, but anyways, I thought that's fine. We got through there, and then I found myself in another lineup to a second full security check. So needless to say, by the time that I had gone through all of this, I was really running behind schedule, and so I kind of ran my way to the far end of the terminal where my gate was, snapping some footage along the way as best I could, which you've already seen. I then arrived at the gate and handed them my boarding pass, and they informed me that the seat that I'd reserved and paid extra for didn't exist on that plane. Because I always book a window seat, which allows me to be able to film out of the window, the takeoffs, the landing, that kind of stuff, just to put in these videos. And so I asked them if there was, in fact, another window seat available, which they said, yes, there was. It was actually the last seat on the plane. And I was like, that's great, then everything's fine. But I got on the plane, and sure enough, I was sitting on a seat on the fuselage side of the aisle. But it was an emergency exit row, which meant that I didn't have a window. I had a ginormous emergency exit door next to me. So I wasn't able to film any of that. We then taxied out onto the runway, and for some reason, we sat on the runway for over half an hour before we took off. Then we had a great flight. Everything went smooth on the flight, landed, got out. I negotiated a deal with a taxi to get me to where I'm staying. And then not 5 minutes into the taxi journey, he started trying to renegotiate the rates that we'd already discussed. And so for the next 10 minutes of the ride, we basically argued over him trying to get more money for the journey and me staying firm to the one that he'd already negotiated to. Eventually he gave up, and we drove here, and then as soon as we got here, he started arguing again for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then realized that I wasn't going to budge, and gave up and just left. So after this kind of stressful long day, which is insane saying considering the flight itself was only like an hour and 15 minutes, but it was like a 6-hour day for me, which felt like a 12-hour day by the time I got here. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna lay down, take a little nap, and then continue with the video. Well, that nap ended up going until this morning. So yeah. So where are we? Well, we're in a country that was first settled somewhere around about 513 BC. It was the first European country to have electric streetlights. I believe it was in 1889. Somebody can check that for me, and I apologize if I'm wrong. It was occupied by communism for decades, but it fought for its independence, and then there was a revolution in 1989. It's the 9th largest wine producer in the world. And the inventor of the modern jet engine is actually from here. We are here in Romania, more precisely in the capital city of Bucharest. Legend has it that Bucharest was discovered by a shepherd named Bucur. And in Old Latin, it's the root of the word Bucuri, which means beautiful. And so, kind of roughly translated, Bucharest means beautiful city, or city of joy as well. In the early 1900s, like 1900 to about 1930, it was also known as Little Paris, because it was constantly compared to Paris for its architecture, its culture, and its lifestyle. Obviously, when the Communist Party took control, that was kind of destroyed. But from what I hear, they're really trying to return to that roots. And I'm excited to get out, take a look around, and see what this city is all about and what it's like. But before I do that, or I should say before we do that, I'd like to try something else that I was also going to try and do yesterday, and that is doing a good, bad, ugly from the places we go. So if you don't like it, write in the comments and let me know. If you do like it, also write in the comments and let me know. So we'll start with Istanbul, obviously being that we just left there. What's the good? The good is there are some really cool attractions there. The mosques were incredible. The palaces were really cool, even though I couldn't film in one of them, which I'm still a little bitter about. But it was very cool to sort of envision a step back in time and try and see what it must have been like in those buildings' heydays when they were being built or first opened. It must have been absolutely incredible, and very, very, very much worth checking out. The other really good thing about Istanbul is, like most cities, you can certainly go there on a 5-star budget and spend a fortune, but you can also go there on a very, very reasonable budget and have a great time. You can still eat out in some really good restaurants. You can still visit all the attractions. You can still get around the city and not break the bank. So if you're looking for a destination where you don't have to spend a lot of money to enjoy it and have fun, Istanbul is definitely one of those places. The bad. The first thing I would say is the scams. If it's not the taxi drivers trying to charge you exorbitant rates to go very short distances, to restaurants that will hand you a menu that's in lira at the door, and then when you sit down they'll hand you a menu that's in euros that's almost twice the price, to tour operators that'll try and sell you tickets in front of the line passes to the attractions that just aren't worth the paper they're even written on. It's really hard to kind of just sit back, relax, and enjoy your vacation when you're there, when you've constantly got to kind of be on guard and looking out for these things happening to you. The other thing that I would say is the bad, and this is more of a personal thing. Some people, it may not bother them at all, and I mentioned it in pretty much, I think, every video, and that's the sheer volume of people. There were several times in several places where I felt extremely claustrophobic and very crowded, to the point where I could almost couldn't breathe. And if you wanted to stop and just catch your breath, you couldn't, because the wave and motion of the crowds would propel you forward whether you wanted to move forward or not. And for me, that was really uncomfortable, and I really didn't like that. And I tried to avoid crowds. I got up early and went out early, but it really didn't matter. You were inevitably going to end up in very crowded places in Istanbul. And if that doesn't bother you, then it's totally fine. But if having people shoulder to shoulder, front to back to you for long periods of time, Istanbul can be a bit of a challenge there. The ugly. I'm going to use the Grand Bazaar as an example here. The Grand Bazaar was something that I was really, really, really looking forward to going to see. I kind of was hoping it would be a step back in time to a marketplace of the past when, historically, the Grand Bazaar was the epicenter of trade for global trade around the world. And I was really kind of hoping to get that experience, and it was couldn't have been more of the opposite. It was generally in a lot of disrepair. Lots of things were broken and dirty and damaged. Electrical cables just kind of hanging across the aisles. And as far as the shopping in there went, it was like, I would say 60% of it was jewelry shops. 15% was kind of Turkish delight and candy shops. The other 15%, which is selling like touristy stuff that you'd find pretty much anywhere. And there was only about 5 to 10% of the stores in there that were actually selling anything kind of cool and unique and different and you know, culturally interesting. But it was really the sort of the whole disrepair of the place that kind of saddened me. And that's something that I noticed around Istanbul quite a lot. There are a lot of absolutely stunning buildings in Istanbul that unfortunately are just sort of crumbling and falling apart due to lack of maintenance and looking after them. And it's really sad because you can see how stunning they must have been at one point in time. And to see them the way they are now is just, like I said, really sad. I did see a few places that were under restoration and trying to be restored, which was really cool to see. But I saw a lot more, and I mean a lot more, new construction going on where they've torn these beautiful old buildings down and replaced them with just normal square skyscraper type buildings, which I really hope that they do a little bit more restoration work and look after the more historical buildings in the city, because like I said, they are really, really quite beautiful. But yeah, that's enough talking for me for now. Let's do what I like to do every time I land in a new city. Let's get out of here and go take a walk around, get our bearings, and kind of see a little bit of what Bucharest is all about. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little walk around our neighborhood, just getting our bearings and getting our first looks at Romania, or Bucharest. Yeah, kind of impressed so far. Really looking forward to exploring this city into a little bit more detail. And we're also actually going to be doing one episode where we actually get out of the city and go quite a far ways away to check something out, which I'm really excited about. But that is a later video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bear with me on these travel day videos. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm doing with them. I'll figure it out at some point. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.